Are the back-to-back Nashville Predators games this weekend must-win games? And what Predators franchise record-setting duo needs to step up to help Nashville dig out of their points hole? We're going to talk about that and share some big Friday feelings on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this Friday episode, welcoming any first-time listeners, and of course, giving that shout out to our everydayers and to our Locked On Predators insiders who tune in to talk Nashville Predators hockey with us. We appreciate your support. We love that we get to spend a little bit of your day with you. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Well, Emma, Nashville finally got their first win of the season after a really rough 0-5 start. Today, we're going to talk about the back-to-back games coming up for the Predators and what the team must do to string together some all-important wins. We're also going to talk about a Predators duo who have factored in on the same goal, a franchise record 166 times. Can you guess who those players are? Emma and I are going to tell you in this episode. We're also going to talk about some lineup decisions, and Emma and I, we may have some big Friday feelings. Before we dive into all of that, want to let you know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Emma, we are still rejoicing from the Predators' first win of the season with what I would say is their best effort of the season against the Boston Bruins on Tuesday night. Tonight, they are on the road facing the Chicago Blackhawks. Tomorrow, they will be home playing the Columbus Blue Jackets. My question for you, Emma, is can games 7 and 8 in an 82-game season be must-win games? And are these must-win games for Nashville?
Well, mathematically, no. But I think with, there's some extra meaning placed on these games because of the way that they started the season. They did dig themselves into that 0-5 hole. Yes, they've finally won a game, and that's great, but you got to win a few more now. You got to be able to string those together. And I'm not saying they need to go on a heater and win 10 in a row, but you got to show that 0-5 start was a fluke.
Yes, you have to prove in, I think, these back-to-back games, like, will the real Nashville Predators please stand up? Like, let us know the 0-5 team just didn't have it together yet, and that this team that beat Boston 4-0 on Tuesday night, that is the real Predators team. They feel a little must-win also because of the opponent to me. I think if you beat Boston, you want to go into Chicago tonight. You want to get those divisional points for sure. Nashville needs all the points they can get, but you certainly don't want to lose to a division rival. Same thing with Columbus. Like you really want to get some momentum. Like, yes, that was a great game against Boston, but you really want to see some momentum. And I think it's going to be tough if the Predators just turn around and drop one of these games. So I agree with you. I would say mathematically, they're not dead in the water in games 7 and 8 for the entire 82-game season. Emotionally, it might not be a really fun time for everybody if they don't come away with at least 2 points in this back-to-back, I would say.
Yeah, got to win at least one of them, if not both. I mean, they're both, like you said, the opponent matters here. I mean, these could be classic trap games. A lot of coaches and players love to tell us they don't believe in trap games, but I do. So I'm going to say that they could be trap games if they're not careful. So I think that, yeah, it's going to be, like you said, will the real Nashville Predators please stand up? Because we need to see a little bit more consistency here going into the weekend.
Yeah. Barry Trotz did an interview earlier in the week. I think it was actually the night of the Boston game. And he was talking about, like, hey, like, is this 0-5 start great? No. What we need to do to kind of get back into, kind of competing in the Central Division and in the league is to get 4 points in every 3 games is an ideal way to kind of make progress in the standings. So we're looking at Chicago and Columbus back to back this weekend. And then Monday on the road in Tampa Bay. Can I tell you that this is a game I dread as much as I dreaded Matthias Ekholm's return to Bridgestone Arena? I am not emotionally prepared for that game at all. But I'm curious, Emma, when you look at like Chicago, Columbus, Tampa Bay, you think the Predators can come away with 4 points of any configuration, including like an overtime point or any of that? Do you feel like they could come away with 4 points?
I feel like they can and they should. I'm not as confident that they will. But again, that's just because they did dig themselves into this hole. And again, we said the entire time it is too early to panic. And I stand by that. It's still it's a bad start, but it doesn't mean the season's lost. But it also means that, all right, now you got to do a little bit more to prove to me that you aren't this 0-5 start.
Yes. You look ahead to the next 3 games coming up, and these are the games that are kind of rounding out October, kicking off November. Edmonton at home, Colorado at home, LA Kings at home. How confident? Give me a percentage of confidence, Emma. Where can they come away with 4 points in those 3 games? Edmonton, Colorado, LA Kings at Bridgestone Arena. Golly.
So, if I were going to put on my optimist hat for a moment, I would say both Edmonton, this argument doesn't really hold up as well because they've already played Edmonton once at home and lost. But
yep,
that loss, the score was a lot more lopsided than the game because there were 2 empty net goals at the end. But if I were going to be an optimist for a second, I would say that Edmonton and Colorado, both more so Colorado, really struggling in the goaltending department right now. So if you can capitalize on that, okay, like that's something that you can exploit a weakness. LA, I don't think, I don't know, to me, they're not really a threat. But again, I just don't with this team and the way they started, it's like I'm not panicked, but I'm also not super confident.
Yes. Well, and here is part of what makes this game, can they get 4 points in these 3 games, that makes that so challenging is that we haven't even seen if Nashville can replicate 2 points. Now, obviously they can. Will they? And you talk about, are these 2 games this weekend trap games? Part of what I think makes a game a trap game is an overconfident team. And I'm like, well, I sure hope the Nashville Predators are not overconfident at, starting the season 1-5. Like, let's, really understand that you have to still dig in. Like, Boston wasn't handed to you, and none of these other games are. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what Nashville does with these 2 games this weekend. I think these 2 games this weekend may tell us more about the Nashville Predators than that Boston win has, because they have to replicate that success. They have to replicate the style of play, the consistency, the communication that we've talked about, the intensity that brought them success against Boston. And we haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it replicated yet. So yeah, these games I think they're going to be pretty important this weekend. Coming up, we're going to share with you a couple of keys to the games this weekend, and we also want to tell you about a record-setting Nashville Predators duo that could be very important when it comes to goal scoring. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's the way daily fantasy sports should be played. It's not you against 1,000 strangers. It's just you against the Prize Picks projections for your favorite players in your favorite sports. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return with Prize Picks, your picks are still alive. We know the Predators lean big time on UC Saros to protect the net, and friends, he came up big against Boston. So why not go on there and include a more pick when it comes to Saros saves? So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So check it out at Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, Emma, as you're looking ahead to Chicago and Columbus, just real quick, what are, some things, some keys to the game that you need to see Nashville do to come away successful?
I need to see some strong starts to periods. They need to come out strong and not just take the first 5 minutes of each period to kind of figure it out. And those, I know we've talked about this before, but those shifts after goals, huge,
Yeah.
huge. And even, I mean, Saros bailed them out big time in after the first goal against Boston because they let David Pastrnak get loose with the puck with no defense whatsoever all around him, and Saros saved their bacon as he often does. So I think that I'd like to see a little bit cleaner, like a little bit better face-off strategy after in that first shift after goals, because you got to be able to, if you get a lead, you got to be able to hold on to it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would love to see them score more goals at 5-on-5. Look, I'm not opposed to power play goals, but really it has taken Nashville a long time to get to where their 5-on-5 play offensively is generating results. Shots, but not results. And this is one of those times where, look, you've got to be finishing these. We cannot take comfort in 43 shots on net, but we lose the game. We're past that emotional hockey band-aid, and we need goals on the scoreboard.
Yeah, and even the power play goals, you and I were talking about this, I think, during the Boston game. We're like, 4-minute double minor. It's like, are they really not going to score? And they didn't. It was, right as the penalty expired,
Yes.
then Tommy Novak scored. So
Right.
technically it wasn't a power play goal, but we're like, seriously? And even when Steven Stamkos got his first goal against Detroit, that was a 5-on-3, and it took them like every last second of that 5-on-3 to get it. So it's like the power play on paper is better than it has looked, in my personal opinion.
Mhm.
I think that, the results are there, and at the end of the day, that's what matters. And so that's fine. But it's like, it just still kind of seems like they're taking too long to figure it out.
Yeah.
But
Real quick, who would you start in net? This is a back-to-back. Remember, who are you starting in net in Chicago? Who would you start in net in Columbus, and why?
Wedgwood in Chicago, Saros against Columbus. I think that now, Wedgwood hasn't played since opener against Dallas. I think that you need to get him back in there. And if you're using him as, kind of a 1-for-1 replacement for Kevin Lankinen, that's usually what they did with Lankinen on a back-to-back. He would, more often than not, he'd play the front end of the back-to-back. I think this team has struggled at home. I mean, almost all their games have been at home, but they have been struggling at home. Needed Saros to bail them out a little bit more. And I would like to give Saros the rest on Friday tonight against Chicago, and then have them start against Columbus on Saturday.
I'm with you. I feel that that's probably the way I would go as well. For me, it's about matchups. And I know that we're looking at Tampa Bay on Monday, and Tampa Bay on Monday feels like a Saros game. But I think you play the matchups, and I think that is your best goaltender matchup based on opponent and even more so than schedule. So I agree with you. I want you to share with the listeners. You shared with me this most amazing fact about quite the Nashville Predators duo, franchise record-setting duo. And I want to talk about this with you. So, Emma, you'll be able to put this into words better than I will, but talk about this stat and these two Nashville Predators and the record that they hold. And we're going to talk about why we think they have that record.
So we have this dynamic duo. If no one has figured it out yet, it is Roman Josi and Philip Forsberg against the Boston Bruins. They factored on the same goal for the 166th, and you said I could put this in words better than you, 166th time in their careers. That means 166 times they have both factored on a goal, whether an assist and a goal, two assists, whatever. It can be any combination. And that is significant because it is the most times that has happened by a pair of teammates in Nashville Predators history, where two players have factored on that many goals together. Through 6 games so far this year, Josi has 5 assists. Forsberg has 6 points, 2 goals. Still waiting for Josi to get that first goal. Again, people have the selective memory, but he got off to kind of a slow start last year.
Same thing last year, yeah.
And then he was a Norris finalist. So, just saying. It's cool because these guys are, all of what we've been talking about is the new guys, the shiny new toys that we have. And it's like, no, we still have the OGs, and they're still pulling their weight and then some. I mean, they're both on that top power play unit, which, as we talked about, has been responsible for a couple of the goals. And Josi obviously has the franchise record in points. I think it's 691 or something. Forsberg is second on that list, 611. Josi has played 915 games, which means he'll probably, knock on wood, hit that 1,000 game mark next season. And Forsberg has played, he's now in his 11th season. He's played, I think, a little over 700 games. So it's really cool to see these two guys. And again, kind of quietly making history together, because they are not the two big shiny names that people are talking about on this Nashville Predators team, but they're still being very effective, very impactful.
I loved in the Amazon Prime series that Philip Forsberg was in. I love Face Off, it's called. I love that Roman Josi was talking about when Forsberg showed up, and he was like, this kid showed up. And we were like, wow, like there is something here. We're going to have to see, especially this weekend. I'm just saying, would really love to see them capitalize on that.
You just gotta give them a minute. They forgot where the ketchup was. They'll find it, but they forgot.
They're going to look together. They're walking the aisles at Trader Joe's together, looking for the ketchup. They're going to find it. It's right next to mustard.
They haven't been to Trader Joe's in a while. They got to remember. So
they got to remember.
They'll get there.
They're going to get there. They are. Coming up, Emma and I are going to share some big Friday feelings. This is the most wonderful time of the year for sports. Major League Baseball championship on the line, NFL well underway, and of course, we are all following the NHL closely. The best place to celebrate all of those sports is with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. NFL fans, you can kick off your season with a big return at FanDuel. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's right. $200 in bonus bets is guaranteed with your first $5 bet. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play by play and so much more. And it's all going to be on the same page where you place your bets. So check out the sports details and the great deals at fanduel.com. That's fanduel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. All right, Emma, it is Friday. We have survived the week. What a week it has been on and off the ice. But on Fridays, we like to do either a fun Friday or sometimes we just need to dive into the feels. And after this 0-5, start and the final win against Boston, I think you and I both felt like we've got some big Friday feelings. So I'm going to let you go ahead and I want you to just express your big Friday feeling for this week.
So I and you and I discussed this beforehand, and I think the way I presented it to you was that this apparently is a hot take, but it shouldn't be if you just look at the results. I mean, it just shouldn't be, but apparently it is. And this is
Mhm.
something that I would like to see happen, but I am entirely sure that it won't, barring an injury. And I do not wish injuries on anyone. That's just
Right.
not okay. So I'm not hoping for an injury here. I'm saying this should happen either way. If everyone's healthy, this should happen. Don't think it will. That's okay. My big Friday feeling
Put it out
is
there.
that Luke Shen should not be in the lineup. Dante Fabro should be playing and Luke Shen should be sitting on the bench. Here is why. Luke Shen is a defensive liability. And I love Luke Shen as a person.
Everybody loves Luke Shen.
He's wonderful to
100%.
talk to,
Yeah.
fantastic person. I have a ton of respect for him and his career, and he has not taken the easy path to get to 1,000 games, which he just celebrated earlier this week. All that said, he does not appear to be well suited to this system. And I think that, that was the case last year as well. Yes, he brings the size, he brings the physicality. That's great. But he can't skate. I mean, he's not fast. He can't hold on to the puck. He can't move the puck. He's putting it right on other guys' tape when he does have it. And as a result of that, it's very clear if you just look at the end result, the box scores for the games. His ice time is so low compared to the rest of the defensemen. You can tell Andrew Brunette does not trust him in high leverage, high impact situations, nor should he, frankly. I think that he, so many missed passes, so many missed saves. It doesn't look like he is suited for he's not the right horse to run this race that Andrew Brunette wants them to run. Dante Fabro, really good skater, really good with the puck. No, he's not scoring goals, and I think that's why a lot of people have soured on him early, because when he was drafted, he's a former first round pick and he's sitting on the bench. And
Yes.
he would be a top 4 defenseman for, I would venture to say, most other NHL teams. And he is sitting on the bench. And that frustrates me, because it would be one thing if you had an entire, roster full of top 4 defensemen, but they don't. They're putting Luke Shen out there and letting Dante Fabro sit on the bench. Now, as a, sort of carryover to this, I think, we've seen the Yossi Fabro pairing be very successful together in the past. And I like that pairing a lot. Yossi gets to play on his natural side. you have Fabro in there, and he's the more defensive defenseman, can kind of hold down the fort, let Yossi move around, do his thing. We've seen success with that in the past. But I do understand that when you have Yossi and Fabro together, if you're not breaking up Lausanne and Carrier, that leaves you with no choice but to put your $7 million man, Brady Shea, on the third pairing with Luke Schenn. Now that becomes a problem because then again, $7 million. Brady Shea is now being limited in his ice time. I'm not factoring in special teams to this. I'm just talking about 5-on-5.
5-on-5.
You're limiting his time on the ice because he is being held back by Luke Schenn. And I don't think that's specific to Brady Shea. I think that would be anyone who's paired with Luke Schenn, but it's more significant with Shea because of how much money he's making. And it's not even just about money. I mean, he's also one of their most skilled defensemen. So you need him out there. So I would kind of float out maybe something I would like to see, and for more than one shift, Andrew Brunette, I would like to see I told you, big Friday feelings. I would like to see what a Mark Del Gaizo, Dante Fabro pairing looks like on the third pair. I kind of like it because in theory, they can both skate. They can both join in on the rush. They're both really responsible in their own zone. They don't make a lot of mistakes. You lack a little bit of size there, but I mean, to me, I would rather sacrifice some size to get some skill out there, and both of those guys have more skill than Luke Schenn does. So that is my big Friday feeling. Thank you very much.
I think you laid out a great argument, and so much about it really isn't necessarily about Luke Schenn. It's the fact that Luke Schenn in the lineup impacts so many other factors about the defense.
And it's not even just anti-Luke Schenn. It's really more it's more pro Dante Fabro, if anything. Yes. I've always been a big Dante Fabro fan. My unflagging support of Dante Fabro and Cole Smith have certainly made me very popular among Preds fans. But you know what? I am who I am, and I believe what I believe.
Yep.
I think that they both have very important roles to play on this team, and I stand by that. So
I think part of it too is that people have the fan base has opted not to emotionally invest in Dante Fabro because he is just the trade piece.
Yeah.
It's like the dangling trade piece, the perennial will he be on the roster player. So yeah, no, I think you lay out a very legitimate argument based on a big Friday feeling.
All right. Now let's hear yours.
My big Friday feeling, and I don't want this to sound like I'm coming down on anybody, but frankly, I'm getting ready to come down on some people. Will you all, for the love, stop calling for Andrew Brunette to be fired? And here are the reasons why. Number one, it ain't happening. So say it as loud as you want. You can type it in all caps. You can repeat the sentiment over and over again. It's not happening. Number two, we know Andrew Brunette's system can work with a majority of this roster. How do we know that? Because they did it last year. It is not that Bruno's system sucks. It's that it was not executed well in the first 5 losses of the game. Number three, Andrew Brunette, the coach you want fired, was a Jack Adams finalist last year. And if it weren't for Rick Tocchet, he would have been the winner. And we don't hear at Lockdown Preds. We got to be honest, we love Rick Tocchet, and we don't begrudge him that award. But that was Bruno's. It is the easy solution. It is the solution that feels good to throw out into the interwebs and the world. But it is ridiculous. And to sum up why it is most ridiculous, Emma, what did you say to me when we were talking about this? That is quite frankly the most brilliant reason why people have got to stop saying Andrew Brunette needs fired. Emma, take it away.
Well, I think people are saying, "Oh, they lost 5 games. He needs to lose his job." And I said, "What? Have you not sucked at your job for 5 days ever?" I know I have.
I know I have.
We all have, it just happens when you suck at your job 5 days in a row. But that's not even the point, because he hasn't sucked at his job. That's the problem, is that I
Yes.
think, like you said, it's the easy solution, and people like to start pointing fingers and looking elsewhere. And I think people are looking at, obviously, the really high expectations for this team. And they're not immediately coming out of the gate and beating every team 10-0. It's like, oh, he's terrible, he needs to be fired. And it's like, a year ago you loved this guy and he was the messiah for the Nashville
Right.
Predators. So
Yes.
it's just a little crazy. And I think people look at like last year, Edmonton, midseason coaching change, they end up in the Stanley Cup final. Y'all, it is not one size fits all. That is
Right.
not the problem here. Edmonton did have a coaching problem. The Predators do not. It is, they have had so much change on their roster, in their, personnel, everything. You just let them find the ketchup. They will get there. Just
Find the
hold on.
ketchup and stop blaming. Look, there are things that Andrew Brunette does that drive me nuts. There are things that he does that I disagree with.
There are times that he sucks at his job.
There are times,
as do we all.
As do we all. As you, some of you like to let us know in the comments. We sleep fine at night. But stop saying that Andrew Brunette and his system are the problem, because we have seen that Andrew Brunette and his system and 90% of this roster actually can work. So that's my big Friday feeling. Let's just give it some time, y'all. He's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere.
He was handpicked while they still had a coach under contract. He is going to be here.
He's Barry's guy.
Yeah. He's got to lose a lot more than 5 games to lose his job.
Yeah, I agree. So those are our big Friday feelings. We're curious. Look, we can take it. What are your big Friday feelings about this Nashville Predators team? Let us know in the comments and share your thoughts with us. We're curious how you guys are feeling with that 1-5 start. Again, 2 big back-to-back games coming up this weekend. On Monday's show, we're going to recap whatever happens tonight against Chicago and tomorrow against Columbus. From your lips to the hockey god's ears, it'll be a great show and a fun show on Monday, but we're going to break it down no matter what it is. Before we wrap up this week on the Locked On Predators podcast, Emma, let everyone know where they can find you and your work.
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at The Hockey News.
You can find me on social media at ANK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work at Penalty Box Radio as well. That is going to do it for this week's episodes of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're going to be back on Monday with an all new episode. We'll see you then.